So I've had a request recently for me to walk through some openings, do some openings in depth, going through all the different lines, and then figuring out from all those lines what the general themes are of the opening so that we can try to help beginning players improve at the game. Or maybe even intermediate players. I don't know. Even those might find something interesting of this. So let's go through, and we are going to find a way to smash the French. That's right, the French defense. It's not dumb, even though I would love to say it is dumb. It is not a dumb opening at all. It is pretty rock solid, which is super, super annoying. Super annoying as white. So we need to find a way to smash it. So let's go through the lines here and see if we can find a way to smash through the French defense. And to do that, we are going to be using the Tarrasch variation of the French. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's either Tarrasch or Tarrasch. Let me know in the comments the correct pronunciation. But we are going to learn all the lines of this opening together. Here we go. And when I say all the lines, what I mean is that I'll be using a mix of top engine moves as well as the top played moves at my intermediate level that I'm at right now. So hopefully this is going to encompass a little bit of everything and give everyone a really good idea of what to do. Okay, in this position, to begin the Tarrasch variation, we are going to play knight to d2 here. This is going to be our theme, a general theme, it's not really a theme, it's just a general move that's happening every single time in this opening. And unlike, okay, we start with this all the time. That doesn't mean that this is a system opening like the London or something like that. We are going to change up what we're doing depending on what our opponent does, and you're going to start to notice that different lines will blend into each other and have a lot of things in common. Those are the themes that we're going to try to recognize, and I'll point them out as we go along. In this variation, black is playing knight to f6. You'll see the slot, and when you see this, we want to advance the pawn to e5. So this would be the advanced variation if we hadn't played knight to d2. Now, for a theme that happens a lot in the Tarrasch variation of the French, we want to get our bishop over to d3. From d3, it's going to be able to have a really good scope of the board. There's a lot of lines where we're going to rely on this bishop and maybe the aid of the queen to pressure the pawn on h7. So we want the bishop on d3 for those lines. Okay, and now black plays c5. What are they trying to do with c5? We always want to ask ourselves what our opponents are trying to do in any position. So black in the French really has one main objective, and that's going to be to smash apart white's pawn chain and break through. This move does that by targeting the base of the pawn chain, but it's also potentially able to push past and attack our bishop. We don't want that to happen. We want the bishop along this diagonal. So our next move is going to be strengthening our pawn chain, completing connect 4, and also giving our bishop a little hidey hole if it needs it. Our opponent plays knight to c6, and now so knight to c6 is giving more pressure on the d4 pawn, and now we're going to play knight to f3 to reinforce things and to develop our knight and prepare for castling. Queen to b6, and at this point the pressure is overwhelming, like there's too much pressure on this d4 pawn. It is going to collapse soon. And is there much we can do about it? Well, let's think. How could we strengthen that pawn even more? In this position, there's not a lot we can do. We can play knight to b3, but hopefully you can see that just blunders a fork when they play c4. So we don't really, we don't want to do anything silly like that. In this situation, we will castle, and you're going to see this a lot in this variation of the French. We will sometimes gambit a pawn with the idea of either getting it back later or getting some really good piece activity. Because that's usually the whole point of a gambit. If we're gambiting something, the goal of that gambit is going to be piece activity. So, Black finally gives in. The pressure is overwhelming, and they take on d4. We have to recapture on d4. They capture with their knight. We capture with our knight, and now, of course, they're going to bring their queen in here. And so far, it's okay. We're just down a pawn. Relax. Everything is fine. But we have to do some really precise moves. One of the reasons why we placed this knight here earlier, well, there's a couple reasons. There are different lines where instead of a pawn on d5, we might have the queen landing there, in which case this knight can develop, can be here so that the bishop can develop straight to c4 with tempo on the queen. But in other lines, we want this knight here so that we can play the move knight to f3 here. And that's attacking the queen, so the queen's going to have to move away. And now we have another really interesting idea. This is something that's going to come up in a couple of the different lines, and you have to know about it in case it does. We're going to play kind of a mysterious move, queen to a4 here. Looking like we're maybe trying to start something on the queen side, maybe apply some pressure. But this is actually just an in-between move. This is a in-transit move because we're playing queen to a4 so that we can slide it over to g4 and go after a kingside attack. Now, in this situation, there's a couple things your opponent could do. In this example, they're most likely going to push g6 because if they were to castle in that type of situation, hopefully you can see without the move g6, we would be able to play bishop to h6, threatening a checkmate, and the pawn, if it was still on g7, would not be able to take because of the pin. So then they'd have to play g6 to avoid checkmate, and then they'd blunder the rook. So hopefully we can see all that. So they are going to play g6 here to prevent all that silliness. And we're going to develop our bishop, and we're going to place it on h6, telling black you're not allowed to castle, which is pretty annoying. Black's going to take another pawn, so at this point now we're 2 pawns down, and we're going to play the move rook a to b1. Now this is going after the queen. It's also protected by the rook, and now they play an amazing in-between move, knight to e5, going after our queen, saying, okay, well, you can take, but I'm also taking. If I take, then I'm also threatening your bishop, so do you really want to go down that line? We don't. We want to play knight takes on e5. And we get a queen takes on e5, and this looks completely crazy. We've given up, a lot, where we're down 2 pawns, and it just looks like, this should be the end of us here. But it's not. We're actually just fine. Trust the process. We're going to take a look at why. The first thing that we want to do is we want to take this bishop and we want to throw in a check with the bishop. The reason is, and the reason why the king moves here is because, let's say, for example, that they block with the bishop. Then there are lines where we can take. The king is still going to have to move and forfeit castling rights. And then you might notice that we could get in with our rook. And suddenly that becomes a really scary situation for our opponent to deal with, because we are infiltrating. So they're going to move their king. And they can't move their king this way because it's controlled by the bishop. So over to d8 is really the only option for them. Now from here, we just have to kind of think. Things are looking kind of scary for the king. What if we controlled this diagonal as well? That could quickly turn into a checkmating threat. We can do that by moving our bishop back to f4, which also tempos the queen. Queen has to move. Now here, very important, we do not want to trade our queens. That would be silly. Instead, let's strengthen our threat along this diagonal and threaten, like, just getting a bishop here and causing checkmate with the move queen to g3. And that's the end of this line. And we're going to go through and we're going to show you, I'm going to show you variations of this line. What if your opponent plays a little bit differently? We'll cover that. So, and between all of those slight differences, you'll see overall, like, what the themes are, what you have to memorize and have to kind of know about, okay? So, here we go. I'm going to play the first moves a little bit faster, right? Because hopefully we remember hopefully we remember that we start with the move e4. They're playing the French defense, so we're going to take the center with d4, and now we're going to play knight to d2, the start of the Tarrasch variation of the French defense. We've seen this before, right? So when they play knight to f6 in this position, we want to push our pawn. We want to advance our pawn onto e5. They have to swing their knight out around out of danger, and we do not want to develop our knight. We want to still keep to the general themes here. We are going to play bishop to d3. Now here they try to break open the center, try to add pressure to the pawn on d4. We're going to play c3 so that we can reinforce that pawn, win at connect 4, and provide a left for our bishop. And more pressure on the pawn, develop your knight. Way too much pressure on this pawn. Get out of the middle, get out of the middle, get your king safe and castled. This is okay. A bunch of trades happen in the center. And now we get back to this position. Okay, so remember in this position, we want to swing our queen around. We want to start generating some threats on the king side, and they're going to try to stop us so we can't have any fun. We're going to stop them from castling, and the queen comes in and takes another pawn, gobbles up that pawn. But in this variation, let's say what happens if the queen keeps gobbling pawns? What happens if black gets a little too greedy in the position? All right. Now in this position, we still have the makings of a very deadly attack. And if our opponent doesn't defend properly, it makes one mistake even, it's all over for them. We're going to play the move knight to g5 here, getting more pieces aimed towards the king side. So now we've got a lot of pieces aimed at the king side. And yeah, we might you might say, well, Sprout, you just blundered another pawn. Not necessarily. We're going to move our queen over and threaten really nasty intentions on black's king. So let's play queen to f4. Black, at this point, they're already lost. They think they're doing great because they're up several pawns, an overwhelming amount of pawns, in fact, and they just took a free piece with a not a check on our queen, but a threat on our queen. But now it's all over. I think checkmate's unavoidable here. We're going to go ahead and take on f7, and the king has to move. Now here it's important that we keep giving checks and we play very accurately. If we play inaccurately even for one move, we've lost too much material and we will lose. But that's okay. We've got this. We're going to play knight captures on e6. And they're going to recapture with the bishop. Now, if we take this bishop, if we stop giving checks here, like I said, it's all over for us. So how do we give another check? Well, let's involve this bishop again in the attack, and we'll swing it back to g5. Really, all they can do at this point is block. The reason is, if we get their king over here, this is actually just checkmate. Queen's protected, king can't move back. All these other squares are protected by the queen, so it is just checkmate. Let's look at another line in the French, and we'll see what else can end up happening. So remember, let's get back to our starting position for the Tarrasch variation of the French. We're in our starting position, and now what happens here? Oh my goodness, they played an immediate c5. How? How does that change things? Does it change things? Or do we just play the same? Well, no, we don't play the same. Come on, no. This is not the London system. This is not a system opening. We do not play the exact same depending on what our opponent does. Depending on what they do, we will change what we do, okay? But some of the themes are still present. All right, so we're going to start. We're going to develop a knight to f3. We are getting it into the center to do some control. And now in this situation here, we want to take on d5. So we'll take on d5 and see what happens. For instance, they're most likely going to take with pawn. If they took with the queen, remember, we have this knight here on d2. There are always positions where we could go and tempo the queen and develop with tempo like that. So there's some different options. Since they didn't take that way, That's okay. We want to develop our bishop, though, with tempo, uh, have it do something active. And I did say in most positions we are going to play bishop to d3. This is one of those rare positions where it's actually really good to tempo the knight right away. The other reason, of course, is, as we said before, if we just play d3 now, we might end up getting hit with c4. And that's going to be brutal. We're going to have to move back to a subpar square, so we don't want to allow that for right now. In this situation here, let's get castled, get our king safety. King safety matters a lot. And now that they've moved their bishop once, a really good idea is to take on c5. We could have taken on c5 immediately, and that would have just allowed black to develop their bishop to a good square all in one move. This means that we've basically forced black to make two moves to do something that they could have done in one. That's called gaining a tempo. Since chess is a finite game, it's you move, I move, I'm back and forth. You and your opponent make moves one at a time. There are a finite number of moves. So if you can get your opponent to waste enough moves, then it's basically like you're getting moves and development for free. Vice versa, that's why we want to be very precise in our moves, because potentially any wasted moves give our opponents more time to set up against us. So we're going to take on c5 and see what our opponent does. They decide here to castle, and now since they didn't take that pawn, there's no reason, like, do we want to give up that pawn unnecessarily? No, we don't. We can hold on to it. We can play knight to b3, holding on to that pawn. All right. Now black comes in with this really annoying move. It's a pin. They're doing a pin themselves, and this is a really annoying one. If we move our queen away, that would be a positional blunder. Reason being, hopefully you can see this, is that if our queen's not around to defend the knight and they take it, we're forced to take back with the g-pawn, opening a direct pathway to our king. And you can believe that black is going to put that to good use and checkmate us and give us some checkmate threats. So we have to take that seriously. First, we're going to play h3 here. h3 being a good move because it gives your king a little escape hatch to prevent any back rank mates if you get into trouble. It's also good here because we are asking that bishop, please, can you take right now? That way I can just take with my queen and we can just be friends and all the tension can be over with. Our opponent in this case plays the best move, which is to keep the tension. Daring white, kind of, to play the move g4 here. And I'm going to give you guys a little secret. If you're a beginner, one of the best ways to level up is to make sure to have willpower in these situations and not play the move g4. Because once we do that, we have really wrecked our king's safety. We have all kinds of vulnerabilities around our king, where before our pawns, controlled all the squares in front of it. Now we've got huge vulnerabilities. They can sneak pieces in, and we will most likely get checkmated. Stronger players know when they can push pawns in front of their king. Like if the center's locked and all of your opponent's pieces are on the other side of the board, it's much safer. But just in general, nah, we don't want to push pawns in front of our king. Avoid it. So in this situation, we also don't want our queen just sitting here having to guard the knight the entire time. She's got better things to do than that. We're going to move, and we're going to play bishop to e2 in this line. The bishop is no longer, this piece is no longer pinned. The king ended up moving, so we can move this back in this situation to e2. Might seem a little counterproductive, but it's what the situation demands. Now, what's black doing? Remember, we always have to ask ourselves what our opponent is doing with their moves. Especially if you're playing rapid or longer time controls, you have the time to ask yourself these questions. So you got to make a habit of doing so. What's our opponent doing by playing knight to e4? Well, it seems to me that they are adding more attackers onto this pawn, and they're getting ready to try to take back the pawn. So we have to do something to stop them. What can we do? Well, we can develop our bishop and defend the pawn at the same time. Bishop to e3. And now, what are they trying to do with this move? A5 is a good move. What are they trying to do? Well, again, hopefully you can see if they push their pawn one more time, they are going to force our knight to move. And this is called removing the defender. They are trying to remove a defender of the c5 square, and if they do that, c5 does fall. So we can't allow that. No, we're not allowing those shenanigans. So we're going to stop it with the move a4. Stop that pawn in its tracks. And now another pawn push. Why are they pushing this pawn? Let's think. Well, again, this could be a remove the defender situation. If they manage to push their pawn one more square, this bishop is going to have to move. So, and if that happens, this pawn also falls. Again, we can't allow that. So we have to do something. In this situation, we should probably relieve some of the tension. We're going to play the move knight to d4 here. And, you know, black is compelled to take here, because if they don't, well, we're just gonna, you know, win a free piece. So they're compelled to take. What do we retake with? Well, we want to retake with the knight, because that's the other kind of beauty of this move. Why did we do it? Sometimes we do something not with an immediate intent, but thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. Once we recapture with our knight will also be defending this square, so that if the push comes, it won't dislodge our bishop. They only have 1 piece backing it up. We would have 2 pieces backing it up there. So we want to play knight captures. We do not want to capture with our queen. And now black goes for another piece. They're looking for more vulnerabilities, as they should. They're looking for vulnerabilities, and this square, the b2 pawn is a little weak. We could defend it with the knight, but it's just easier to just defend pawns with pawns. We're just going to push c3 in this situation. And this game, we don't always, when we're planning on things, we don't want to plan on our opponent playing like dummies. We want to plan on them making the most realistic moves in the position. So that means we also have to plan for some of these lines where they play really well. We don't get an immediate crushing advantage, but white is still better here. We have good control over everything. Our position's rock solid, and that's the purpose of an opening. It's not always to crush your opponent as quickly as possible. It's to get out of the opening alive. It's to develop your pieces efficiently as possible. So in that regard, we still made it out of the opening. Let's go on to another chapter. This one is, again, with c5, what happens if c5 gets played right away. So again, since we've already seen the starting moves of that, I'm going to go through these moves a little bit quicker. c5, do you remember what we do in this situation? We play knight to f3. Okay, now this is interesting. This didn't happen last time. So what are we doing? What did we do before when we in the other lines when we saw them play knight to f6? Yeah, that's right. We pushed and we played e4 to e5. So common theme there. If you see the knight come up to f6 early, you're going to push your pawn. If you still have the pawn there to push, you're going to push it. All right. So in this situation, we want our bishop to get to d3, but we can't get there immediately because they could just knock it away. Let's play the move c3. A little bit out of order, but you remember we played this before. It's just the needs of the position dictate that we're playing it out. We're playing this first before bishop to d3. Now we can play bishop to d3. And now we can castle, and you might notice, even though they played c5 early here, this transposed. This position transposed into the same position as if we'd had knight f6 on the first, as the first variation, I guess, from black. And that's how, a lot of times, if you know these different lines, you will notice that the themes, the different moves, oftentimes do transpose, and you do get more general themes that you can apply and memorize. So let's keep going. We are about halfway through, so hopefully you're still with me. I know this is kind of a little bit more dry, in terms of like entertainment value, but this is education, and hopefully you're going to be able to use this to go back to your games and kick your opponent's butt. So hopefully it's all going to be worth it. All right. Again, we know what to do. Knight d2 here. immediate c5. No knight on f6, so we're going to develop our knight to f3. Okay, and they decide to go ahead and take here. This didn't happen before, did it? C captures d4? I don't think this happened. What do? In the event of c captures on d4, we're going to first play e captures on d5. And we see here that the queen has recaptured. This, by the way, is most likely, this is what's most likely to occur. As I said earlier, when I am creating studies, I look at the Lichess player database, and I see what moves are most likely to occur, not just the top engine moves. And this is most likely to occur in this situation, all the way up to probably around 1800 rapid rating. This is most likely to occur. And in this situation, this is another reason why we put our knight on d2. We can develop our bishop with tempo, meaning that we are creating a threat, and our opponent has to stop what they're doing and respond. Unless they want to give us their queen. I'd be fine if they want to gift us their queen, but they probably don't. So they move their queen back, and now we should castle. This pawn, by the way, isn't going anywhere. We are going to win it, but we want to pay attention to king safety. Always want to pay attention to king safety, even if we are crazy attacking players, which we are. I definitely am a crazy attacking player, but you gotta mind your king safety if you want to have a successful attack. Okay, in this situation, they're developing. Why are they developing? Well, why are they developing anything? They're trying to castle, right? Makes sense. They want a castle, so the knight has to come out. It's a good time for it to come out. Now we can play the move knight to b3. We played it before in a different line to hold the pawn that was on c5. In this situation, we are playing it because now there's overwhelming pressure on this pawn in the center. They cannot keep hold of that pawn. So we're going to take the pawn. They're going to recapture, and we're going to recapture. Okay, and in this situation, what do we want to do here, right? Well, we want to keep developing pieces and attack. A good rule, a lot of times, is to get our bishop moved over, especially if we have a semi-open file. Because the king is still, our opponent's king is still in the center. So as long as the king is still in the center, there are always, pins that could exist. And there is always a situation where sometimes X-raying the king is the best move. That's what we're going to start with. We're going to move our knight here so that we are X-raying that king. Queen moves back. What do we want to do? Well, what are they trying to do? The queen is attacking our bishop. That's one reason they're probably doing this. Another reason is because let's think a couple moves ahead. If they were to develop this bishop, where could they develop it to? They could probably develop it to d6, and then they'd have a cheeky little battery here on h2. So either way, we have to move our bishop. So we should probably move it out of harm's way. And now the bishop is guarded and really stationary in that position. And sure enough, they have played bishop to d6, and they have a little battery. Fun fact here, we don't care about that. We are going for crazy attacking chess, where if our opponent doesn't know what to do, they're going to end up in serious hot water. We are trying to create a dangerous situation, and we are going to do that with the move knight to f5, taking advantage of this pin that we set up. They play bishop captures on h2. Of course they do. Here now, very important, we are okay because we know what we're doing. That's why we study openings, so that we know what we're doing. We're going to play king to h1 right now. King f1 ends up being a little bit of a blunder and can be susceptible to more checks. So it's better just to play king h1. You're also making sure that the queen has to remain in contact with that bishop. And now they castle, which, of course they do. Now, here's where things get crazy, and I want you guys to stay with me here. We're going to play knight captures on g2. Yes, knight captures on g2. That was the reason why we put this knight here. In case they castle, knight captures on g2. Most likely, the king is going to recapture right away. There is a situation about 15% of the time where they will not capture right away, where they'll throw in an intermezzo. We will go over that next, but for now, let's see what happens if they capture right away. We are going to keep using different pieces for pins. This knight might have to stay in front of the king if we pinned it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play queen to d4 here with the idea of starting to swing pieces around for an attack, since we removed some of the defense of that king and it's a little bit vulnerable. We're going to play queen to d4 here. Most likely move is going to be the move e5, attacking the queen, and we're going to come over, swing around with our queen, and we are going to, you might notice now, the defense of that bishop has been cut, so we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to play queen to h4. So, since the bishop was likely to be lost, they don't want to get nothing for it, so they're playing bishop to f4, and the bishops make contact. We are going to capture on f4. And let's look at where we are right now. What do you think we should do next? Black's king is still really, like, exposed. Also, the king is the only defender of this knight. So, what if we could remove the defender of the knight? That'd be pretty serious for black. And yeah, you see here it is. Queen to g5 here. We're attacking the knight. King can only go in the corner, which is really funny now, because now when we take the knight, the king is in check again. And once again, even though, you know, black should be okay, they're not, because our moves are coming with tempo, and they have to deal with it. And now we're going to play rook to e5 here. Just a brutal move. Hopefully you can see where this is going. The only way now that black can avoid checkmate is going to be giving up their queen. And if they give up their queen like that, I'm still bringing over another rook, and we are still having another go at checkmate. You know, so it's pretty much all over. Black can just resign this position. But what happens if they don't fall for all that silly shenanigans? What happens? I mentioned what would happen if, instead of taking the knight on g7, what if they throw in a little sneaky intermezzo move? What happens then? Let's go over that right now. We'll get into that position again. So again, I'm going a little bit faster, but hopefully you remember the moves. We're going to tempo that queen and develop at the same time. We are taking the time to castle because we care about king's safety. There's no way for them to save that pawn, so now let's go ahead and remove the pawn off the board, institute some trades in the center. Let's get our rook over to the e-file so we can have some pins that allow for the rest of our tactics to actually work. Don't blunder the bishop. Utilize the pin. It's funny, too, because a sane person might think that we are utilizing the pin to try to remove the bishop. So, yeah, we're not a sane person. I'm not a person. I'm a red panda. I'm not sane. I'm a cartoon. Cartoons are never sane. All right. But look at this sneaky little intermezzo from black here. They play rook to d8. Now we definitely can't move our queen in to d4. Because, well, that's just a way to blunder the queen. So we have to change up our strategy again. We still need to get over to the king side in a hurry. Otherwise, this sacrifice is just a silly thing. Let's get our queen over to f3 here. Not ideal, but we're doing what we can. Now we're going to play another really sneaky move. We are going to play the move bishop to h6, and what we're doing is we're trying to get them to take, and then we're removing the defender of the f6 square, and we can get in there, and hopefully you see, under this situation, we can still get other pieces in very quickly and have a devastating attack against the king, because it has nowhere that it can go. So we're going to play a little sneaky move. And again, we have to plan for our opponents making good moves, not the dumb moves. If they make the dumb move, you know what to do. But we're here to learn what to do if they play reasonably well. Okay, in this situation, we have to figure out what to do. King is still over here. We need to bring more attackers. We can do that actually by playing the move c3 here, um, allowing us a little spot for a bishop here to add the bishop to the attack. They are trying to get some pieces over here. They're trying to free up things and say, what did you do? Why you just sacrificed for nothing? Here, we're going to pull our bishop out. There's a couple squares it can go to. I prefer all the way back to undeveloping it to c1. Again, don't try this at home unless you know what you're doing, but that's why we're going for things. They need to get their bishop out of there, so they're trying to trade off bishops. We're already down material, so trades are going to benefit our opponent. In this situation, we're going to do a little intermezzo of our own. We're going to play g4 here, threatening this knight, and it has really nowhere good to go. So it's going to give a check, and we're going to recapture with the pawn. Now, in this situation, it's pretty spicy. This is a spicy situation, but we are going to be able to get the bishop involved. We're going to be able to get our queen involved. Overall, who's safer here? I don't know, but I think with good play, white is still going to be all right. And as I said, there's really only a 15 to 20% likeliness of them playing that intermezzo move and not just taking the knight immediately. And then we already saw how that goes down. Okay, now the final sort of variation that we have to know about. Let's get back to the starting position. Alright, and this is a distinct possibility. It occurs in about a quarter of the game, so it's not the most likely situation, but we need to know what to do here and how we deal with this. So we're going to play knight takes on e4, and most likely they are going to play knight to f6. Now here, we could be a little bit passive and try to defend, but taking here is actually really good for us. And it's good because it puts the queen on an awkward square, which you'll see how that works. Or they recapture with the G pawn and do some structural damage to themselves. So either way, it's good for us. We're going to take first and put the queen on this awkward square, and we're going to demonstrate why having the queen here is awkward. Why do I say it's an awkward square? Okay, now in these situations, remember bishop in most situations goes to d3. This is this is not any different here. You might say that we are disconnecting our queen's defense of the pawn. And if that's the line of thinking, that is a poison pawn. Don't worry, we'll cover that next. They're going to develop their bishop. They're getting ready castle. We are going to play, we're just going to develop. We're going to play knight to f3 here and see if our opponent blunders or not. It's a good move. We're not just trying to, do these traps and blunders. But in this case, our opponent decided to castle. And now we see one of the reasons why queen f6 is an awkward square for the queen, because we're going to develop our bishop and put it on g5, and the queen has nowhere to go. The queen is completely trapped, and we are just winning a queen. Of course, we don't want to blunder the knight. We've already taken the queen, so at this point, trades are definitely going to benefit us. So we're going to generate a threat of another trade by playing knight to e4, going after this bishop. Bishop has to move back, and now we just castle, and we're fine. Like we are fine. We're no problems at all. Black could resign. They can keep playing on, but it's fine. We can either go for we could try to do some cheeky sort of checkmating ideas, possibly doing some dual attacks. We can also just play it simple and trade down, because we're ahead massively, so trades are going to benefit us. If we trade down, that will be a completely crushing endgame. Let's bring up the position again. Let's get back to where we were. And I could just fast forward through this part, I could just snap to where we're in the position, but I want you to get used to these moves, to seeing these moves. Okay, queen's on f6, and we're going to play bishop to d3. And in this line, the queen takes on d4. This is just a blundered queen. We just step our queen, not queen, we step our bishop out of the way and give a check, revealing an attack on black's queen. So no matter what, they're going to be down in exchange. They're going to lose their queen for a bishop. Either they're going to block the check and lose, lose the queen, or they'll, or in this case, well, that might be the best they have, honestly. Otherwise, they can also play bishop to d7, and the same is going to result. We're gonna take the queen. They're going to take our bishop. But that's why you can't. That pawn is a poison pawn, and we don't have to worry about it, at least at that moment in time. All right, and we know what to do. Queen's over here. What do we do next? We play bishop to d3. And we've seen this before as well, right? So we play knight to f3. Oh, look at that. Oh, look, they're so smart. They're so smart. So they've realized in this line that this is a major threat, that they could lose their queen, so they're protecting against it. That's okay. In this situation, here's another thematic idea for you in a lot of these lines. Queen to e2. We're going to play queen e2. The whole reason for this is that it quickly sets up a battery here that our opponent is going to have to deal with. Because now, hopefully you can see, we're threatening checkmate. They have to do something. As I've said before, anytime we're on the attack, we really don't want to trade our queen. Of course, black wants that, because then they can rest easy a little bit. Instead, we're not going to go for the queen trade. We're going to bring our queen over so that it's still maintaining pressure over here on the king side. And we're going to play queen to h4. And the queen kind of can't, threaten any more trades with us. So it's most likely going to go over and give a check. And that's kind of the last thing that black is going to get to do. Now that the queen has been thwarted, we're in a position to win this game. So let's win it. Bishop sack on h6, exposing the king. Queen's going to come in, and now kind of the best chance that black has is to play the move f5 here, shutting down an immediate checkmate, but that's okay. They are still completely lost. Hopefully you can see why. We still have a knight that's going to help us give checkmate. But here, the most crushing way to play is not to bring the knight in first. It's actually going to be to move the queen over to g6, give another check, and force that king into the corner. It has nowhere else it can go. Because now that's in the corner, now we can play knight to g5, threatening checkmate, and black is cooked. There's nothing they can do. The checkmate is unavoidable. Here in this situation, funny enough, we could block with the pawn, but we don't even have to. We can just give up castling rights and move our king, sidestep our king. It doesn't matter, because it's still checkmate. In this situation, there really is no way to avoid the checkmate. If they didn't, it's checkmate here. Under certain circumstances, maybe it's checkmate this way. But yeah, there's really nothing that they can do to avoid checkmate. All their pieces are just sitting at home on the other side of the board. So we're able to give checkmate here. But Sprout, you might ask, what if they don't just roll over and give you that checkmate? Don't worry, we're gonna cover all that right now. Let's get back to it. Knight takes on e4. Knight takes on f6. The queen gets misplaced. We're going to put our bishop on to d3. Remember, this is a poison pawn. We're going to play knight to f3, both developing the knight, giving some threats of trapping the enemy queen, adding protection to the d4 pawn. This move does a lot. And now, in this situation, we remember what we did the last time, right? We're going to play queen to e2. And in this situation, They haven't castled yet, so queen to e4 doesn't do anything here other than just blundering, possibly blundering the pawn or blundering much worse. So we're going to strengthen this pawn first with the move c3. Again, we have to kind of adapt what we're doing to our opponent's play. Here's an interesting situation. They move their bishop. They could castle kingside or they could castle queenside. We got to see what they're going to do. Either way, we should just get castled. Get our king out of there. Get our king safe. And at this point, they've decided to go queenside. So let's switch our tactics. Instead of, a kingside attack, we'll go with a queenside attack. And we have the ability to start that right now with pawn to b4. Black decides to follow suit. They see like, oh, this looks good. We'll also push some pawns. Well, our pawn push is a little faster, and we get there with the move b5. Next, we're going to play a4, locking in this pawn and getting ready to push further into black's territory, add more pressure. They are playing g4, so we got to do something with this knight. Never fear. Let's try to see where else we could put it. And what I see right now is that it'd be really great if we could get the knight to e4, because we would be attacking black's queen and possibly the bishop if we wanted to just get the bishop pair and remove it from our opponent. So how do we get there? We start with the move d2. And now we move it over to e4, tempoing the queen. And we have the makings of a really good attack over here on the king side, on the queen side. One of the disadvantages of queenside castling is it's a little bit less safe than king side. A lot of times you'll see titled players and stronger players will, soon after playing queenside castle, they'll move their king over just to add extra protection to the A pawn. Let's go for another line. We have 2 lines left. You've almost made it to the end of the video, and this has been a long video, so if you have enjoyed this video, please let me know. Please like, comment, subscribe, do those things. Let me know if you want more of these videos or not, or if you're like, Sprout, this is boring, this is silly, I'm not getting anything out of that. Let me know that too. I mean, that'll be really crushing, and it'll make me really sad, but I want to hear it. I want the feedback. All right, we get to our starting position. And again, it's not always going to happen with the move knight to f6 here, but almost in all cases it does. There is one lesser move that still sometimes happens where they will develop their other knight first, and we're going to cover that in our final line after this. Okay, we know what to do here. Bishop to d3 because that pawn is poisoned. Develop the knight to f3. They stop our fun. No fun for us. That's okay. We're going to play queen to e2, trying to get some more fun. We know what to do for this in the last line. Anytime we encounter this, we want to play c3, just creating a little pawn chain here, and also just shutting down any movement that our opponent has. Okay, they might castle kingside, they might castle queenside. Let's get our king to safety. And in this line, they decide to castle kingside. What are we going to do here? Well, as in some of our past lines, we want to put our rook on e8. We're creating different kinds of batteries. We have this bishop is here, always preparing a queen-bishop battery. We're going to have our rook on e1, preparing some sort of battery along the e-file. Black does the same thing. They move their bishop, their rook over. Why are they moving the rook over? Are they just copying us? You might see that if they push this pawn, that could be a very effective pawn break at this point. If we don't take in that situation, they could push again, and they will fork our pieces and also have discovered attacks. So that's all bad. We don't want to allow any of that to happen. How do we shut that down? How do we make sure that a pawn break doesn't come? Well, we can play knight to e5, And at this point, let's do some trades. We're gonna play D captures on e5. Queen has to step away, and now we're getting into some of these same themes as before. Why was the whole point of us putting our bishop on d3? You know, there are a couple reasons, but one big reason, and again a theme in a lot of these opening lines, is we want the queen bishop battery, and we've removed any defense of it right now. So let's go ahead with that queen bishop battery. And all they can really do here to prevent it is to push some pawns. But what happens when you push a pawn? Whenever you push a pawn, squares that it was defending before are no longer defended. How's this change the position? Well, now the h6 pawn is no longer defended. So we're invading. We're coming for that king right now. We're coming in with our bishop. King is moving. Doesn't really matter what the king does right now, honestly. It's still a horrible position for black. The king is moving, trying to threaten the bishop. We're going to play queen to f4, strengthening that bishop. And the king is, you know, they're in a tight spot. They're going to have to unravel their situation. But they can't totally do what they want because we are going to tempo the queen here. We're going to move the bishop back, providing a tempo on their queen. They have to get out of there. And now we're going to station our bishop on f6, and this is just all over. Now, of course, the rook has to move, but were we ever attacking their rook truly? No, we have a devastating attack here. We were never going to actually take that rook. From here, we are going to do a rook lift, because it's almost game over for this black king. Let's play rook to e3, threatening checkmate. They block with their queen, and this is still checkmate. They can't do anything, because we can just take, and we can still play rook to h3, and the bishop stops the king from moving out of the checkmating line. So, really cool checkmate that can happen there. Hopefully now, like, as we're going through, you can really see the value of why bishop to d3 is so useful in so many of these lines. This is the final line. You've made it to the end of the video. This is the last one. Let's get back to it. Similar to what happened last time. So we know what to do in all these moves, right? We know what to do for all of these. We're playing knight to d2. This is still an immediate variation where they immediately play d captures e4. Gonna capture with the knight. And oh, look at this. Now we have something different. They didn't play knight to f6. They instead played knight to d7, which is the other move that they are likely to play. Much less likely, but still, we got to plan for it. Here in this situation, just remember, if they move this knight first, you probably want to develop your other knight first. So let's go ahead and get our knight on f3. And sooner or later, they're going to have to, you know, get this knight out. They could play knight to e7, but that really makes it difficult for them to castle then, you know? They're not going to be able to get their bishop out. And then it becomes very un-French-like. If that happens, you're just going to have to kind of play, you know, develop your pieces as quickly as possible to good squares, and you're going to have to deal with it. But it's extraordinarily unlikely that they would play that way, like 1% of games, so we're not going to cover it here. We're just going to cover the most likely things to happen. So we see a knight on f6, we're going to take the knight. So it happened a little bit later, but we're still going to take it. And now, basically, when you do that, it's almost like you took the knight on d7, because these knights defend each other. Okay, now what should we do? All right, we're going to play, again, we're going to play bishop to d3. And just the same thing as, you know, remember when their queen was on f6, they couldn't take the d4 pawn because it was poison. Same thing here. Different position of the queen, but the exact same idea is present. They can't take this pawn. Well, they can't anyway, because now it's defended. Like, it's defended in extra time anyway, so they definitely can't take it. All right, now, in this situation, what do we usually do here? Why did we put this bishop here? Well, we put it there so we could move our queen to e2 and get ready for a battery. But look, we can't do that this time. The knight is defending the mating square. The knight's also defending where our queen wants to go. So we have to do something about that. And this is a time-sensitive operation. We could castle here, but we gotta strike while the iron's hot. If we can remove this knight, that could be like lights out for our opponent. So let's get our bishop over there with the intent of removing the defender of h7. Black in this situation, especially at a higher intermediate level, is very likely to play the move b6, getting ready to challenge our center and start with a queenside pawn expansion. Also, potentially allowing them to fianchetto the bishop over onto b7. We're not going to allow any of that to happen. We're going to go off with our plan of removing the defender. And now, queen to e4 is pretty crushing because we are attacking two things at once. We are threatening checkmate, and we're threatening to win the rook on a8. They can only defend one of those things, so, I mean, if they defend the rook, well, it's just GG's, so they're going to defend against checkmate, and we gobble up that rook. And that's going to end this study. So, that was a long one. We've been at this one for, well, I might edit it down a little bit, but it's almost an hour, so geez. If you enjoyed it, though, because I love this stuff. I just love the intricacies of going through these openings, figuring out the themes, and then outplaying my opponents afterwards. So if you enjoy that too, and you want to see me tackle more openings in depth, please comment and let me know, because otherwise I won't know. So you got to let me know. And again, be sure to like and subscribe as well. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye-bye.